Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another FlyteTyme interview. And it's been a while, and yeah, I think it's been too long actually, but we're back. We are back, myself, J4, I got Mr. Fresh, and I got Figo, and I want to introduce to you guys a special guest. But before I announce his name, he's a producer, engineer, musician, author. He has been making records for over 30 years and has worked with some of the world's biggest artists and producers to help deliver hit records to the masses. He is a multi-platinum and RIAA certified producer and engineer, and longtime member of the FlyteTyme Productions family, working in a prominent role with R&B songwriters, Hall of Fame producers, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis on many of their successful recordings. He has been recording, and he has been a recording engineer, mix engineer, and drum programmer for the likes of Janet Jackson, Sounds of Blackness, Gladys Knight, Karyn White, Barry White, Jon Secada, Lionel Richie, Patti Labelle, and many condition and many. I'm gonna need some water here, okay?
So
many. His work as a solo producer with Kush, Ryan Benson, Sounds of Blackness, Black Butter, Kika, and more have seen him thrive as an independent producer, engineer, programmer in the years since Jam and Lewis. On his Madjef music show, his goal is to reconnect with the musicians, producers, singers, singers, and friends he's made in a lifelong pursuit of music. He calls it Vines, Branches, and Vibes. Ladies and gentlemen, give us a warm welcome to Mr. Jeff Madjef Taylor. All right. Thank you so much.
Black butter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you taking your time out, your busy schedule to be with us today. And obviously today is a bit of a difficult day because obviously we start off hearing the sad news of the iconic rapper DMX that passed away yesterday. So we want to say rest in peace and send our condolences to all his friends, family, and loved ones. So thank you so much again, Jeff.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here.
All right.
So thank you. I also want to say another thing too. We do apologize for the late start. We had some technical difficulties. So thank you very much for hanging on and staying with us. So welcome to another FlyteTyme interview. You know how it goes, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis group. You know, we have a set of questions we want to ask our guests. So I'll give the floor to Figo to ask the first question, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that is fine. So starting off with our first question. This comes from one of our members, one of our 6,500 members, Jessica Peterson Rogers. And she wanted to know, what was it like to watch Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis create great music? And the angle she's coming from is knowing what was the best session and the quickest session you've ever done as well.
Well, that's to answer the first part of that question. To work with Jim, to watch Jimmy and Terry work, you know, during my initial days where I got a chance to really be in the room and see the magic that both these guys brought and their individuality, and which each member brought to the team. It was clear to me that they were meshed in a way that was quite unique for grown men to be able to work together so fluidly. And I just remember thinking it was magic the way these guys worked and they did their business, and everything was friendship and on a handshake and stuff like that. So it was overall magic, you know, to be honest. Very talented guys.
Okay, wow.
As far as the quickest session, I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, that's a tough one to follow that, I think, with, because give me some time to think on that. But I think there weren't really any quick. There's no. It depends on what you mean by quick, I guess. Are we talking 3 days? Or are we talking, you know, are we talking 5 days? Because nobody got in and out of FlyteTyme unless the song was finished. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, yeah, I've seen vocal sessions where, listen, we're not done. You know, it's 5 a.m. So, you know, the record, the quality of the record, the melody, the capturing of the essence of the melody, the song is key, and it was front and foremost, and it didn't matter really. There was no clock when it came to capturing that. You know what I mean?
Wow. And who would you say was your best recording session? Or most memorable? I guess that's what Jessica's referring to.
I had so many of those, and I thank God for that. You know, working with Mint Condition and Stokely and Carrie and Ricky, Jeff and Larry, you know, so talented, a bunch of guys that there's so many sparks and ideas flying around the room that you have to be in tune with everybody, or you're lost, because they're moving at a pace that's on a level of creative genius, and that's each individual person contributing in that way. Same thing with Boys to Men. So I was in a room with Boys to Men, and I you know, in a one-on-one situation, I got a really good chance of having an equal level here and understanding. But with a bunch of guys in the room, all genius level, it's like, well, okay, I'm just going to shut up and do what I'm told, and that's kind of where I fit in those situations. There, you know, I was there to facilitate, and that's what I did.
Wow. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Fresh.
All right, Jeff. You know, there's going to be a bunch of tech questions in here, so I'm going to prep you by saying 3 things: Rode, RODE, AKG, and Shure. So this person's question, this is Renee Weig. He's essentially asking, how do you pick a mic if you had to mic an artist, if you were engineering the mix? Is there a specific mic that you like to work with that's your go-to?
Now, are we talking specifically at FlyteTyme, or are we talking about just as a producer in general?
Pick one, whatever applies.
Well, since we're on the subject of FlyteTyme, I think it's important to point out the simplicity of which vocals were approached at FlyteTyme based on the microphone choices.
Okay.
There wasn't a plethora of micro choices for vocals at FlyteTyme. Each room had the same microphone in the vocal booth.
Right.
And that was an AKG Gold, I believe it was. I wish I had a picture of that, and I probably do in somewhere. But it's an AKG. So if you get the point of that, is that this is a high quality microphone. Nobody's got this microphone out there in the world, but we got 4 of them. And guess what? We're gonna hit these microphones at high level, and they can take Ann Nesby singing into them, and Patti Labelle, and we're going to have them across the studios, and we're going to have a uniform sound, and people are going to wonder what the heck we're using. So not to go too deep into the psychology behind that, but the simplicity of it is what I point out here. Equal, every vocal sounding the same for the same reason, same microphone. And when I say same, I mean same quality of recording of the vocal is what I mean by that.
Right. And that goes back to what you said about uniformity. So that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, Paul, bring up the next one.
All right. So Jeff, we got another question by James Eric Hickson, and he's wondering, did you ever have a certain approach used each time when you mix a Jam and Lewis track?
Yes, and that well, wow.
Okay. Oops.
No, I mean, it's a great question. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to answer it, because there were so many pieces involved with that. Because you got to understand, the way we recorded in those days was to 24-track tape, 2-inch tape machines. Okay, and we would take one of those tape machines and fill it up with the music, and that music would consist of drums and keyboards and instruments and so forth, and then we would get a couple vocal tracks on there, and then we bounce that down to another 24-track machine. So all those instruments would live on another track, and then we would spend time cutting vocals on that new multi-track, filling up that additional 23 tracks, with that 24th track being dedicated to Simply, so the 2 machines will eventually lock up again. And so when it came time to mix, you had a multi-track that had 24 tracks of instruments, everything separately, kick, snares. There was no multing anything, because
right.
Again, the fidelity was so important. It was so important to have a kick and a snare. Even the cowbell had its own track. I mean, everything had its own track. And that was so that when it made it to that Studio D, into that mix room, it was, or if it was mixed in Studio A, which is where I primarily mixed the stuff that I got a chance to mix, we had complete separation. We were able to spread things around, do amazing things. And so yeah, if that answers your question, starting with having all those elements on an analog desk spread out in front of you, you know, you take your pick. For me, I think I would always with those drums and the bass and the keys, just so I could feel the body of the song and get that mix up there. And at least everybody knows I understand the track. You know, the guys that are hiring me, the guys that are brought me in to mix the song, whoever that might be, Mint Condition or whoever, you know, they might be sitting there going, well, at least he understands so far the body of the song, you know, the beast in the belly. And now let's see how he does with everything else from here on out. So that at least gives me the leverage to be able to sit there and do what I like to do, which is get things up and running enough to make people say, okay, I'm gonna ride with this.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Jeff, one thing that always intrigued me, and it's something that I have observed over the years, and I can't say learned because I'm not really deep into it like you, but it's like when you sit down over the year, come a music aficionado like all of us, and listening to an album, like, okay, that's produced by Jimmy and Terry, of course, they have their own process of actually playing the instruments and stuff. But it is down to people like yourself that has to make that music, that final product, sonically orgasmic to the listener, to use a better term. So when it comes, the final product comes to us now, and it comes to us direct, we enjoy it. So I'm just intrigued by, you know, the actual studio recording, you know, Jam and Lewis or the actually vocalists sing their songs, but you're the man that does the final touches. And that to me is very important, because I know that sometimes in the studio, as we know, things could be a bit rough. If people thought that things could just go from, or for recording straight to analog or straight to CD or straight to MP3 without you, well then maybe we won't be enjoying our music the way how it is.
I agree, Paul. And I think, I mean, you're giving me way too much credit, because I mean, Jimmy and Terry could have done what they've done without my help. That's for sure. Anybody that was smart enough to come in and recognize the opportunity that what it was to work alongside, you know, these two guys, anybody that had that opportunity and was smart enough to recognize that, you know, would have did what I did, which was just to shut up and try to do my job. And I think the only time that I ever opened my mouth is when I was screaming loud to get opportunities, because I wanted to stay loyal to this crew and be a member of this unit. But we all had specific jobs, and my job wasn't to put the final touches, but my job was to take it from the beginning, that whenever I touched it, whether I was doing drums or recording somebody, I had to take it from there, and I had to guide those 2-inch tapes and monitor them and care for them and make sure I didn't record over anything you know what I mean, and keep them going until that project was finished, and handle them off to Steve in Studio D, where Steve would put that masterful approach of compression and reverb and effects and all those things that you are explaining to me, Paul, as the erotic lushness and the vibe and energy. We had stages that we went through. There were organic beginning stages, and then there were creative stages with overdubs. And listen, man, I've witnessed Jimmy Jam sitting up all night long till 7 in the morning doing overdubs on a track to get it ready to go into the skillet and to go into Studio D. You know, so you know what I mean? I mean, Jimmy come walking out of that room with his socks, bro, at 7 a.m. and you're there because he's there. You feel what I'm saying? And you know, you got to support the guys. So if I know they're in the building, I would try to stay in the building as long as I could to make sure that they were good, because those guys worked in a bubble and they had their own little thing, and it was a creative bubble, and that allowed them to do exactly what I'm telling you, and that is walk out the back door of his office with a tape at 6 in the morning with his socks on and hand it to Steve. And, you know, mix that joint for the next week. I mean, I'm not talking about for the next day. You know what I mean? I'm talking about that song might be up for the next week that song is being mixed. You know what I mean? And that's the pursuit of excellence. So stages to get there. And I played a role where I was fortunate enough, they said, come on in here. And what we need you to do is we need to monitor who comes in and out of this studio. And whoever comes through that door is kind of on you to be responsible for. And that was literally the role that I played when I first started at FLYTE. And I mean, I kid you not. And eventually that evolved into, okay, so now everybody that goes into a studio, you're in the studio with them. And that was, so then that went from kids like Usher coming in, who's 30, you're going to be with Usher while Usher is here until we figure out what's happening. All right. I'm hanging out in the game room with Usher, you know? And then now you're in the sessions, and okay, Boys and Men are coming. You're the engineer, and you just go, okay, you know? Yeah. And you go in there and you do the damn job, and you learn that people are seeing something in you, suggest to you that you, even if you don't know it yourself, if Terry Lewis says you can do it, believe me, you can do it. So you don't question that. You just go and you do it, and you're grateful for those opportunities, you know.
I want to ask you a question quickly. Sorry, guys. Was it when you worked with any of these artists, like, was there a way that you knew that this is what they liked, or this is how, like, what was the chemistry like, getting to know from each artist? Obviously, each artist is different.
Well, you know, Jimmy and Terry are artists. So you got to understand that. So when an artist came to Minneapolis, the artists, no matter who they were in complete awe of Jimmy and Terry.
Right.
You understand that. When you walk into the FlyteTyme building, baby, and you see hallways lined with gold and platinum albums. If you didn't know who they were before you got there, when you walk through that hallway to head to one of the studios, you get a quick reminder of just where you are. You know, and I've seen singers become quite humbled as they arrive in the garages, bang, 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 and then they slowly go, well, I mean, we got to take off our shoes and get into this, because this ain't nothing fancy. This is about to get dirty, and we gotta step up to it. So, you know, just, you know, as far as catering to folks, we didn't do that. What we did is we catered to songs. So listen, I had the fortunate ability when I arrived, I had the fortunate ability that Jimmy and Terry put me in a room with Big Jim. Right. And like I said, they were sticking me in a room with everybody. So, you know, if there's a session, like I'd be running a session in A and D, and I'm a C and A at the same time, and the room in the back, the pre-production room, on a regular basis, generating beats. I'd have my MPC set up somewhere where I was always trying to get their ear by creating stuff. Like, I'd just be having beats banging all day. They'd be like, well, the other producers would be like, well, I thought he was just an engineer. I'd be like, I am. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about what I'm doing. You know, but my goal was simple. I gotta show my talent, because I want to do this like for real. So but that's how we were set up. And you know, we would just have all these sessions and all this opportunity, but we were put into groups. You had Jam and Lewis, and then you had Prof and Lance. You know, they were the B team. Right. Yeah. Lance and Prof were the B team, and they handled a lot of production odds and ends for Jimmy and Terry that Jimmy and Terry didn't do. They passed some stuff to Lance, and they got into some stuff in the early years. But then they got low key. When the perspective came, low key came in, and, you know, honestly, Prof and Lance, their energy went to low key. They got their boys up here. They formed their nucleus. They did that album. It was dope. And that's what their focus became. So there was a lot of production opportunity available in the studio that fell down to guys like myself and, you know, and some other cats. And Terry and Jimmy are the kind of guys that, look, if you're in the room and you're creative, you can stay. And if you can stay, what you're using there might be something that we can use. And to be paired up with Big Jim in the room, when Big Jim and I were literally arrived on the first day together. Right. And I remember Big Jim sitting in there. I had $5 in my pocket. I remember Big Jim across from me, rest in peace, with holes in his shoes, straight out of Chicago, you know. And we were just like, man, can you believe where we are right now? You know, it was trippy. But what it gave us a chance to do was just start. Look, man, we just started creating. Like, we're drum machine running. Jimmy's just playing, bringing in the keyboards that we just trying to create. So we literally create another vibe. And look, a lot of those tracks ended up on Patti and Barry and Gladys and so forth. So you see, the opportunity was there. It was in itself the moment that you in the door, because very few people got into that door. And once you were in there, all you had to do is make yourself available and valuable by being creative. And Big Jim, rest in peace, was the most creative people I've ever met. And to be in a situation like that with him, for me, with Jimmy and Terry, gave them a lot of confidence in my ability to run any session. And from there, you know, the sky was pretty much the limit for me.
Oh, that's
I never
great.
said no.
Right. So Lee Aquarius Birch, she wants to know, did there ever have a disagreement on mixing a track? Like, how did you resolve it? Like give an example, like a song or an artist.
Well, disagreements. Well, Jimmy and Terry didn't disagree. So again, you know, these guys didn't disagree. That's not something that they did. And if they did, right, you never saw it. This is what I think of when I see Jim. When I think of Jimmy and Terry, this is what I think of.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is what I see.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So two brothers who understand the importance of being on the same page. Like I said, to have a partner like that for either of them, bruh, I could only hope to have a partner that good, but have had two partners like the two of them, you know, for me has been a remarkable thing, you know, for sure.
Right, go ahead, Paul. These are yours questions, so go ahead.
Okay, all right. So the next question is by myself. And which artist had the most takes in recording a song to your memory? I had to do it. I had to do
That's too funny. That's too funny. You know, I'm going to show you a picture because this is an interesting story. But oh my God, I don't even know if I should do this. I might get in trouble. But I won't name any star names, but I will name this kid. See this kid right here in the middle here? This kid's name is Sergio. And there was a show in the 80s, and rest in peace, that's Big Jim on the left there,
Yeah.
Jim Jam in the middle, and me on the right there, and there's Sergio in the middle. Sergio won a game show, Name Your Adventure or something. He got the opportunity to come in and produce and write a song with us. So the goal was to have Sergio come into the studio and be in the booth and write a song. We hoped he would sing it, but Solo just happened to be there. So we put Solo in, got his Solo involved, and Solo sang the song, and he was involved in writing the lyrics. And it was just so funny because he didn't understand the concept of how the singing into the microphone actually translated to the record, you know, but this was his goal to do. And I just thought it was amazing that he thought it took, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks in order to actually sing a word or a phrase as opposed to just like moments into a microphone, if that makes, like he didn't think you could actually sing a phrase. He thought you had to sing literally word by word and actually piece it together. And I thought that was funny. So that would have been the longest session in history. And I just remember laughing about that with the guys thinking, wow, this would take forever if we did it that way. And that was funny, but just one of those unique situations.
No worries. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, I'm going to take. But before I lead into this question, Jeff, let me share a story of something that I heard on an interview. You were being interviewed. I forget the name of the entity that was interviewing you, but this story is about young, hungry Jeff. Jeff, I remember you telling this interviewer that you were going to be the master at drum programming. I'm paraphrasing, with the MPC 60. So much so that people could not ignore your talent. You put so much time into it and effort that when you carried that box in, if you were at FlyteTyme, like you were saying earlier, that the minute you start loading up your beats and you start firing off beats, people will be like, he's so good, he has to do the track. So here's the question from Paul. And what he's asking is, when is the most productive time for you to write and produce? Or let's put that together in one word. When is the most productive time for you to create? Morning, noon, or night?
You know what? I'm a special child because for me, it's all the time. I literally cannot separate myself from creating. I'll tell you a funny story. When I first started at working for Jimmy and Terry, one of the most embarrassing things happened to me. They gave me a company credit card. It said, Jeff Taylor, FlyteTyme Productions. I think it was an American Express card. I was so proud, bro. I didn't know what to do. So what do you think I did? I took it to the nearest guitar center and I bought myself an Akai MPC 60 for the house, a JD 800 for the house, some speakers for the crib. I kitted out a studio at the house on the FlyteTyme credit card. They did not like this. This did not go over well, man. I tell you, this didn't go over well. It didn't.
Hey.
Look at that, man. That MPC, I got one in the studio.
It didn't go over well. But you know what? This is what I was working on right here. You see this case?
Yeah.
This is what I would come and go from FlyteTyme with. And what this was is hours and hours of me capturing drum sounds and loops and kicks and snares and all the freshest and all the dopest and all the things you haven't heard on record. I was grabbing them and sampling them and putting them in libraries to use on recordings with Jim and Lewis. That was my defense of why I took that credit card. And they just said, look, Jeff, we have a closet full of equipment over there. Like, just pull out, just do me a favor, just focus all of your energies here. Just do that for us. And then spend time with your family. When you go home, so, you know, they were adamant about that. Spend time with your family when you're at home. And then when you come here, just give us 110%. So, you know, but give us that shit back and just give us 110%. And, you know, we're all good. So we went on from there. But you're right. It was about me being as prepared as I possibly could. I felt like I had to be better than the other guys because I didn't come in as a producer. I came in the way I could fit in. When you got to get in the way you can fit in. I came in as a second engineer, a guy that was answering the door when there wasn't nothing else to do. You feel what I'm saying? Running errands. There was a point where I had the keys to Jimmy and Terry's house. I was doing more stuff at their house than I was doing at the studio, and I was like, something's wrong. People are misunderstanding me. I'm a producer. I'm a producer. What am I doing? So my goal was to, I spent a lot of time at home, morning, noon, and night, back at the studio, beats running, and I didn't mind blasting it so everybody heard it, because I was guys know that you do what you do, you in your lane, you do what you do. Don't worry about me. Do me. I'm gonna do it to eternity. My future's already been shown to me. I already know what I'm doing here, so I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. You feel me? So beats was a part of that for me, big part of that. That's how you get a song jumping. You get the right beat. Look, there's been times when I've been in there on a beat. Big Jim's in the room, me in there, and just messing around. Terry walks in, he walks by that hall, he comes, stick his head in that door, and he does like this.
See that?
Terry go get a pencil and paper, go to his retreat to his office, and Terry comes back with a song, brother, like a Gladys Knight hit. You know what I'm saying? So this wasn't a game. This was like an opportunity to be great. And you were led by guys. And people will say the guys that were great, and people will say, well, Prince, taught those guys. You got to understand something. Minneapolis is a cold place to live. It's I heard so. It's one of the coldest places I've ever been to. So you got to understand, these guys spent a lot of time at home perfecting these instruments, bro. They're instruments, DJ and playing instruments and just really owning that stuff. Like, I own this bass playing. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I'm not just a player. I own this bass. That's Terry. Terry's like, go get my bass. Terry be like, go get my red bass. No, Terry would just be like, go get. I remember one time I said to Terry, which one, the red one? And he just looked at me like. he said, go get my bass. Which one? The red one, Terry? Because everyone, that was the only one that he brought out to record on, and he did it with such precision. But I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I think I get lost in this, man, because the memories are so many and they're so fond. Look, they exposed me to literally anybody and everybody. They just put me in a room with all of these guys, bro.
Man.
And they said, they said, make it work, and I built relationships with some of these guys, and I'm very proud of those relationships. That's Ricky and Larry from Mint, Terrence Trent D'Arby, people like that. These are the people that I assisted that I hung out with when they came to town. Here's one. This is Captain Jack McDuff, bro, and he's a legendary bluesman. He passed away, but I did this session my time with Gary, and look, there's just a lot of really cool stuff that happened. And since we're at it, let me just go show you guys a quick picture of Steve Hodge, just because if he's probably annoyed as heck that I'm doing this.
My father.
But what up, Steve? There's Steve back there. That is Studio B, by the way. That's Jimmy's personal haven right there. You can see that old Harrison Raven console. I'm not sure what that is. I think it's like a MR9 or some crap like that. I'm not even sure. But so a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool situations, and more stuff than I can. I forgot more cool stuff than I remember. It's amazing. To be honest.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, my turn already. Okay. All right. So next up, we got a question from, actually, it is from Alvin Williams. No, Jeff. What mixing board and preamps were used to create those hits? I know it's one of those.
That's a serious tech question there for you, Jeff. Look at you scratching your heads like you're thinking very hard now.
I'm not really. You guys cannot make me sweat, bro. You literally cannot make me sweat. What?
Keep the hat on, bro. Keep the hat on.
The cap on. That's what it is.
You can't make me sweat. I spent so many hours at FlyteTyme that this stuff is ingrained in my body. Listen, we spent so many hours in those studios. So to answer your question, Harrison's Series 10 consoles Nobody had them in America. They were a British-made console with analog input and a digital circuitry. So you could actually get an analog preamp into the digital board and then use it as an automation and so forth on the board itself to automate the board. It had a compression, EQ, and everything built in digitally, but it was an analog board. It was built by Harrison. The Series 10 was in Studio D. That was our mix room, and then Steve mixed on that one. And I also mixed in Studio A on the Harrison Series 10 also. I had a computer interface and everything. It was modeled after an SSL, but it was a British analog with console digital circuitry. The preamps the preamps were real simple because, again, you got to understand, I'm going to go way back to what we initially talked about, and that is the simplicity of the process in order to maintain integrity across the board for everything that comes through this mixing console, right? So we're going to set this preamp on the board. We're going to just use it. We're going to come out of that preamp and maybe go directly into a DBX 160X limiter or a compressor. From there, we're going to go into an Orban limiter, or Orban de-esser, which was really key. So two mic into that preamp, out of that into a 160 DBX, into Orban de-esser, which was in every studio and every signal chain, and you couldn't record anything without that the Orban in there. I think I did once because you had to patch everything in with a patch bay in order to get everything to work. And I think I remember I recorded a vocal and I did the whole session without the Orban in there, and you could tell there was sibilance and noise and everything. And I remember when Steve heard it, and Steve just said to me, he just looked at me and he just goes, "Yeah, I know what you did." And I was just like, "Damn." See that? and I never did that again because it was clear that it was a part of a process where that Orban had to be in the chain to avoid that sibilance. So when it got to that mix stage, guess what? Because our goal was to really be creating in Studio A. If Terry was in there, he was trying to mix that song the way he heard it. And by the time every day after every session, we were printing a rough mix of that, and that rough mix, living with that on his long drive out to his mansion out on the lake or whatever. And the next day when he showed up, he had a clear-cut picture of where he wanted to go with that song. And that was the same with both him and Jimmy. They both did long tapes that they took drives home with. Because look, these guys left the studio at all hours of the morning, and Jimmy would drive for like an hour and 40 minutes, I think it was, or something like that, to get home. Can you imagine doing that after a 5 a.m. session?
Wow.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So,
rough.
But look, tuned in, their bodies tuned in to being up all night in a session and then driving home, just like you driving home from work. It ain't even like that to them. It's not like it's 5 a.m. and there's deer crossing the road. It's like, I just got off work.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I remember longing just to see what the hell was going on in the daytime. I just wanted to see, like, I remember just peeking out and seeing the mailman and going, what the hell is he doing? Putting the mail in the boxes? That's all he's doing? Because you sleep all day and you work all night. But, beautiful life. Beautiful life.
Crazy.
Wow. This is one of my questions here. What were the challenges of recording a solo artist compared to a band or a group?
Well, as an engineer in a session for me, I was thrown in with the bands. I really was gator bait for bands. I really do believe that, because that's a difficult thing to be in a band. You're trying to be in a room with low key during the recording of a record, bro. Not the easiest place to be.
Okay.
Not these, because everybody got an opinion and everybody's super creative and everybody is adamant about what they're feeling. You know what I mean? And so you be in that room with Boys II Men or Low Key or Mint Condition, you got a lot of stuff to pay attention to. I mean, it really, physically, it can be draining.
Okay.
Okay. Because you got a lot of stuff to pay attention to. And when I say that, I mean, not only the stuff that you're recording, but every vibe and every bit of energy you're getting from every person in the room. You got to literally manage that during the course of the session. Okay. Because all it takes for one person in that group, one person session, to say, I don't like this dude. I don't like him at all. You know what I mean? And that, you know what I mean? Because it's happened to me many times where guys just be like, no. I had somebody in the session say, "Oh, you just Mr. Perfect, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm perfect at this shit. What do you think? What do you think I'm doing? Yeah, I'm perfect. I'm trying to be perfect at this. Yes. Yeah. Like you just Mr. Perfect, ain't you? So that's what you're dealing with in the industry when you're me, because I'm not high, I'm not drunk. I'm sitting there literally trying to be the calm one in the room and get this thing done. And one of my friends, man, I did a session after Jam and Lewis with this cat right here, David Banner.
David Banner.
Hey, Mr.
Oh,
Cadillac on 22, you remember the hit.
Yeah.
It was huge,
Yeah.
right? So listen, man, the session consisted of so much toxic, what's the word I'm looking for? Toxicity, is that a word? So much stuff that you don't want to ever have in a recording session. That, you know, I'm sitting there, the smoke is so thick, I can't even see the fader. So I'm literally doing like this. And I'm going like, you know, somebody, you know, so I reflect on that to remind myself of what a luxury it was to work with Jimmy and Terry, because you couldn't even come into the studio smelling like smoke at Jam and Lewis's place.
Oh man.
You couldn't even come in there smelling like alcohol. Not on Terry's watch. Terry would call you out. Terry would stop. And look, if you stop Terry, he does one of these.
Right.
Bro,
I can see
not
that.
good. Not a good look.
Give us that look again, one more time. Give us that look one more time.
He ain't gonna say a whole lot. If he does one of these, like, if he does that, oh, you better bro. Don't speak. Just leave. I mean, because you know they had like I said, you know, there's integrity to what those guys were doing, man. So for guys like me who were under that umbrella, you know, it was a joy. And speaking of which, that umbrella, when I say that umbrella, I mean if you had that FlyteTyme jacket, and I got mine, bro. It's in the closet over there. I would have dug it out. But it's Florida, baby. It's hot over here. I don't need it right now. But if you was rocking that jacket, bro, and it's in that city in Minneapolis from 90 to 2000, whenever, bro, you had literally had the key to the city. It was a beautiful thing.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah, man. Go ahead, Paul.
No, Doug, man. Doug.
So, Jeff, 2 more words for you. VP9, 3 words actually. VP9000, Publishing, and Janet Jackson's vocals. The question from Lisa Mertens, we kind of talked about her first part, but I know that from your Discogs, you worked on some of Janet's stuff. How did you guys, meaning you, Jimmy, and Terry, get Janet's vocals so thick, but so light and airy at the same time?
Well, again, you gotta understand what you're dealing with here. Jimmy and Terry are producers who are also engineers. So Jimmy and Terry didn't ever need me in a room to record anything ever. Right. Now, I just want to make that clear. You understand? This is how capable Jimmy and Terry are.
Right.
So that doesn't want a room full of people, especially a room full of technicians. And Jam doesn't want a room full of technicians either, because then that ability for a singer to be that intimate and give you that airiness is going to be affected by the number of people in the room, right? True. But if he can get that singer alone, light the candles in that studio the way that singer likes the candles to be lit, and then get the lights down real, you know, FlyteTyme had the best dimmable lights I've ever seen. And there was, you walk into every room and there was 100 knobs on that wall, and you could just literally set a sunset in there if you wanted to, right? So that was key. So if Jimmy's alone in that room with Janet, and he's getting what he wants from her, and she's giving him when there's an intimate relationship and they're recording vocals and he's getting what he wants, he's going to naturally do whatever he needs to do technically in order to make that happen. So in a case like Jimmy, I've seen Jimmy record a whole loop of music that he's performed and sample it and then trigger it phrase by phrase onto a tape machine, use it as the basis of a song without even sequencing. Right. So flying a vocal down and then doubling a vocal through a harmony machine, Eventide or whatever, is going to be a piece of cake. And then when you've done that and you're satisfied with the different harmonies you created, because you understand the difference between the intervals of a singer's voice, or the intervals of the range of music and so forth, because you understand that, you're able to put one here and put another one here and then put another one, and then your engineer knows how to take those things again and separate them, because they're all separated, and then EQ them, and then apply the correct modulation and effects to them to make them big and beautiful. So do you remember them, Paul Eversley?
Yes, I do. Yes.
All right. That's what it is. So a simple process, but guys doing whatever it takes to get it done. Like Jimmy's not gonna sacrifice a quiet moment in the studio with Janet to bring people in to achieve an end, when he knows with a little work and a little thought, he can figure it out himself and make it happen for himself.
Definitely. Good answer. Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
No problem.
All right, so the next one is by Eric Gilthorne. And, you know, you talk about a lot about the analog era. And now we sort of moved away from, well, so most of us have moved away from analog to digital. And Eric Gilthorne wants to know, with the advancement of technology that has enabled the do-it-at-home singer, producer, mixer, engineer, has that hindered the emergence of the new crop of studio engineers?
Yeah, I mean, it'll just never be the same because, well, music is not the same. I mean, I guess it's technically, if you look at it, no, because in order to record music today, all you got to do is know how to take an analog signal and make it digital. And once you've done that, you've conquered the entire process essentially, right? You've taken an analog signal, you got it now in your laptop. You can literally put that under your arm and go wherever and do whatever. So for this new generation, if they understand what they've done and how to process that with compression and limiting and EQ and effects and so forth to an end, which they may stumble upon on their own through trial and error, then the goal gets, the end is met. However, for a guy like me coming up, I mean, I learned that you take the signal and then you route it through here to amplify it. Right. Then you take it from that amplification and you compress it and limit it. And then you take it from there and you de-ess it. And then you take it from there and you pop it onto one of these tape tracks, you know what I mean? And you monitor that level to make sure that level's not too hard. You know, what are you recording at, 30 IPS or 15? However, that's going to determine how hard you can print that signal. That's a lot of information that kids are not going to ever discuss again.
Right. Exactly.
You know, that's stuff that kept me up at night. And I want to give a shout out to Steve Hodge. I mentioned that earlier because I learned so much from Steve Hodge, from Dave Rideau, an engineer you don't hear a whole lot from, but Dave Rideau is a genius. He's an engineering genius who with an unlimited ability to stay up and get a mix done. Dave is the beast. I literally remember being asleep on the floor behind Dave. You know what I mean? Where Dave could go. And another guy was Prince Charles Alexander, was a guy from New York City. He was with Puffy's camp, and he was a guy that Lance and those guys brought in to mix their record. Initially, Prince and I didn't get along because I had an issue with Prince being there because I felt like family. I recorded most of that record, and I felt like I wanted to mix that record. I really did. So I was kind of hurt when they brought in somebody from outside of the camp, and I showed it. I was immature in those days. I was letting people know, no, that ain't cool. you know what I'm saying? selfish as hell. But I've grown up since then. But Prince and I, what I learned from this dude was Prince Charles is this: if he's coming to your place to mix, you better have about 4 sets of NS10s available for him, because he is using Pultec EQs and Neve 1073s, the hardware units. I'm not talking software. And he's cranking kicks and snares and the hi-hats through these things, bro. And he's smashing NS10s, killing them, crushing them. But what he's getting on the other side is just like sonic greatness, bro. So I witnessed that with him, where he literally would just he would look at me and say, Jeff, that NS10 is dead. I would be like, that thing has been dead. Take it off the shelf, take it to the tech room, fight with Brad about getting a new one, take it in there, set it up there, smash that one up too. But that's the price you pay for a guy that come in and wins the specialty. Like me, if I, in a situation like that, I'd never smash it in S10 because I understood the system. I understand that, this is how things go here at the studio, and I'm not going to be a hindrance to that by smashing up the gear. I'm just going to, if Steve ain't smashing up gear, I don't need to smash up gear. You know what I mean? In order to be successful. So I really just followed the blueprint that Steve laid out there and that Dave Rideau laid out there. And these were not, and look, Steve was a stickler. Steve was not an easy guy to what can I say? Steve was not an easy guy to understand, in terms of he was after a certain level of perfection that he expected everybody to be on board with, and not everybody was on board with. Some guys were just rushing through the process, and he had a stickler about it. He was a pet peeve of his, is that you got to care about what you're doing, and I love that, because I've adapted that as a way of life for me.
That's great. That is really good information, especially for young engineers, producers, whatever. To learn your craft and make sure you learn about it. Don't rush the process to be the youngest cat out there. It's not always about being that. So when now you're talking about things like that, this is a question here from Larry Peace, and he wanted to know what was one of the most challenging songs to record, and how did you guys, especially Jimmy and Terry, pull it off?
Well, I think Scream was probably one of the most. I just remember Scream being logistically such a nightmare for the guys, for Janet, for Michael, trying to get everybody on the same page and there. And when Michael came to the studio, Michael didn't come by himself. Michael came with a lot of people, they really wanted to take over your entire studio when Michael showed up to make sure that Michael Jackson's standards were met. And I'm talking Bruce Swittian is in there trying to take over your studio. That's,
Good Lord.
I mean, you're just like, okay, hey, Bruce, what you need something? What you need? I'm the coffee guy. Steve is the boss. I'm the coffee man. You tell me what you need. But that's the experience that you can't, you can't write off. And I'm grateful to have been there. But something like Scream, somebody trying to get you understand, they were the biggest stars in the world at this time.
Yeah.
During this time period, they were mega stars. So I think trying to make all that happen with the labels, and I think there was some stuff with Janet and LaToya that was happening in the background. It's still, bro, I've seen everything. I know where the skeletons are buried.
How secretive was that production? Was that very low-key production, or did everybody know about Janet and Michael coming in to work with Jimmy and Terry?
Nobody knew nothing about nothing when it came to working with Jimmy and Terry. You ain't know nothing. There was days when I would show, I didn't know who was I didn't know. I was just told 911 on my pager, be at the studio. Boom.
Wow.
Show up, you walk in there, and Raphael Sadiq is there.
Wow.
And it's like, all right, Jeff, you working with Raphael? Y'all gonna work on this thing for LA and Babyface. LA will be here in a little bit. And you just go, all right, let's get it. And then for me, I just got to make sure that room has got everything it needs in there in terms of production tools. What do we need? Who's going to need keyboard? Am I have a musician in the room? What's going down? How's it going? I just tried to make Jimmy and Terry's job so easy. That's what they loved about me. There's a lot of stuff they hated about me, I'm sure. Mostly had to do with me just like visually showing people like, fuck, man, this should be me. You know what I mean? Like I said, selfish, and I regret that. But my determination to make their lives as easy as possible while I was there in those rooms, in those various sessions, I think I definitely carried a lot of weight with Jimmy and Terry.
Cool, man.
Nice.
Okay, is it my turn, I think?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, okay, that's problem. I got a question from JD Copperfield, and he's asking, when or how were the eventide harmonizers introduced into their vocal recordings? And the part two to that question, was Jimmy playing MIDI notes, one melody at a time, or triggering full-handed chords onto a single track?
Like I alluded to earlier, I've seen Jimmy patiently take a 4-bar or a 2-bar loop and create a full 3-minute song out of that loop, and then come back and use it as a music bed. So doing note by note would be nothing for Jimmy to ensure that he got the precise execution that he was after. You know what I mean? Doing chords for Jimmy, if he heard the harmonies a certain way, he's gonna play chords. But if you hook that thing up via MIDI, get that vocal going through there, process it correctly, and only process the output of a harmonizer, it's a pretty amazing sound you can get on the other end. If you can figure out how to EQ that properly and bring that back into a track and record it on the 2 tracks in the stereo, guess what? That becomes the basis of something that may not actually be your background vocals, but sits real nice on the top of everything or underneath everything. You see, the approach is always use the technology any way you want to, because these elements may fit into this mix. It may change the direction of the song, but harmonizer, sampling vocals, moving things around, using whatever you want, wherever you want it, dropping a loop in from a record in real time. Yeah, I mean, no limits to the creativity, really. And you understand, Jimmy and Terry were up on everything. They knew everything about everything, all the music. You understand? I remember going on record runs with Jimmy Jam. We were going on regular record runs. He would do this once or twice a month. Whenever new releases come out, he would literally go with him to merry-go-round or wherever they had music, and he would buy all of the music. Anything that was out, he would buy it, and we would come back with boxes of stuff. The magazines, I mean, study, scouring people, music styles, their sounds. I mean, this never stopped, bro. They were super successful by this time, but they had the same mentality in terms of the hunger for knowledge and production techniques that would always keep them moving forward.
Right. These ones are for you. This is your stream of questions I see here lined up. So shoot away, buddy.
All right, Jeff. So your discogs is pretty big. You touched a lot of artists, a lot. I mean, artists outside of FlyteTyme's camp. But getting back to FlyteTyme, we know that Jam and Lewis, in terms of their drum programming, it's kind of started out with the Lynn. I believe the DMX was involved at some point. Everybody knows that they just took the Roland TR-808 to a whole nother level. And of course, MPC 60 was in there. I think the MPC 62, they had a 2500, MPC 2500 in there. So I'm going to combine a question from member Jay Lane. And he wants to know, based upon your remembrance and especially your drum programming, tell us about some of the drum machines that you use to program some of these hit tracks.
Oh, that's an easy one. Because like I alluded to earlier, when they gave me that credit card, I went out and bought my own personal Akai MPC 60. But that was my machine of choice, was the MPC 60. I loved the way I could work with the samples. And like I said, I had a library, dedicated to that, was real special to me. And it was, this is year. I went everywhere with this case, bro. These are all MPC 60 samples. Each one of these loaded up into the machine could set off a different vibe, a different energy. You know what I mean? So if somebody would say, "This is what we want to do," I would be like, pop that in, and then we go from there. So whatever it triggered, we would go from there. If it didn't trigger anything, it didn't make it on a record, it was okay. It moved on. We moved on to the next one. But the Akai MPC was my favorite. We had SP1200 in there. Every now and then we pull the SP1200 out for some stuff, and just to get that gritty 8-bit quality of the SP1200. The Lindrum lived in Jimmy's office. That was Jimmy's baby. Jimmy loved that Lindrum. It never left. It never left. We had back in As Quiet as It's Kept, there was a place called Roger Dodger Music in St. Louis Park. A guy by the name of Chaz ran the shop, and I swear to God, the shop was so far out of the way and hard to find that the only clients that I thought they had were Prince and Jam and Lewis, because these guys would literally show up at the studio with a truckload of the latest synthesizers, bro, load them into the studio, and Jimmy would just take them things, open them up, and cut records on them. So you know what I mean? It was a constant bombardment of new technology into the studio. We had a closet that I want to shout out Ray Seville, because Ray is my buddy. Ray worked for Jam and Lewis for many years. He's still associated with them, still lives in Minneapolis. And Ray and I had the keys to that locker room, and we were responsible to make sure that those synths and those valuable keyboards remained in there. And it's because sometimes stuff would literally walk out the door, bro, and you just be like, what the hell? Who did that? Like, why would that, So there was a lot of technology there, and when the old stuff phased out, we just put it off somewhere in the storage. But I guarantee you, they have hundreds of classic keyboards in their collection. Oh yeah, to this day, hundreds of items, bro. Like everything. I'm talking about every keyboard.
Man, there's a ton of members in the group, and probably outside the group, that would just love to open up that locker and see the exact key. Man, I'm gonna tell you. I would love to sit down and talk to Jam about tech in terms of what keyboards he used on Alex cuts and Sherelle's cuts, and we know that he used the Mirage very early on Janet's stuff and Sherelle's stuff, and so yeah.
You got to understand it. You got to understand, like I said, look, Jimmy is not a stickler for any particular thing. He really isn't.
Right.
Jimmy don't care if he opens up the box and he plugs it in and he plays on it, and it moves him, he cuts it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He takes it, then he looks through, find what else he likes, nothing in this one. He takes it off the rack, puts up whatever else he's got, and he cuts it. And it's not, and he moves on to the next. And those sounds stay fresh because he's grabbing them as they're fresh to him. When he grabs that sound, it's fresh to him. And therefore, when he delivers to you, therefore it's fresh to you. I think that's an amazing confidence that a producer has when he can say, "Oh, this is fresh to me, therefore it will be fresh to you. Not today, but 6 months from now."
Absolutely.
That's impressive. You think about it, you know. So that's kind of how the guys work. Nobody's married to nothing. Like, bring the keyboard in here. I need that one. Okay, now I need a D50. I need a D-roll and D50 in here because I need a bell sound or whatever. You know what I mean? Then go get that particular keyboard or the mini Moog or whatever we need to do something specific. But yeah, the genius happened when Jimmy put the keyboard up there, plugged it in, and then he gave you that little thing that you just can't forget. You know, the first time he probably even touched the keyboard. That particular one. Yeah. Which is awesome, you know.
There's a number of questions that I had actually, and a couple other members had, and I know we're running into the hour here. So I have nothing really to summarize, but what I'd like to do and what we'd like to do as a dynamic duo is now turn the floor over to what Jeff Taylor is doing today.
Well, before we I had one of the questions you guys had submitted to me was somebody had asked me about a special session, and one of the special sessions that I wanted to point out was this session right here. Now, this is an unknown session. Nobody knows about the session. This is an unknown session. This is what we call a secret squirrel session right here.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Secret Squirrel. That's Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, Jimmy Jam, and myself there, and Terry's somewhere in the room, and I think Steve Hodge was in and out of there. But, you know, as you can see, Steve was set up on the keyboard, the M1 over here. Joe Perry's guitar was off to the left. You see that red bass I was telling you about? That's Terry's red bass behind me right there. You don't ever ask him if it's the red one. You just go get the damn
Don't mess
bass.
with it.
Right? And look at my laptop right to your left right there. This is an Apple, I don't even remember the model number, 540C. This is one of the first Apple models ever made. So I was just out of LA. I had this brand new laptop. I had Sound Designer 2 on there, and I sampled every kick and snare from every Aerosmith record. And during this secret session that we had a writing session with these guys, they literally came in, did a secret writing session with us. I cracked out with rock drums from the MPC. We wrote some songs together. These guys jumped in a limo and everybody scooted down to the Target Center. They opened up the side door. These guys hit the stage and rocked out to, I don't even know how many thousands of people, while we just stood there like watching, like, this is a life in music. This ain't bad. This ain't bad. So that's one of the special things that I just kind of wanted to point that out. The other special thing I wanted to point out too is just some of the relationships I have with people. This is Ann Nesby. You know who Ann is.
Of course.
Ann and Big Jim were real special people, and I just want to shout Ann out because she was instrumental in giving me opportunities and so forth, and giving me a chance to you know, to record with sounds. And she was always really wonderful to me. I look forward to working some more with her, you know, in the future. But you know, just really good stuff, man. In terms of you know, the memories that I have working at FlyteTyme. Like I said, those guys, people have asked me in the past. I've had people that have DM'd me and said, "Bro, you didn't make those FlyteTyme records." It's like, bro, I'm not claiming to be Jimmy and Terry, but I was in the room. I had an opportunity to do something amazing and be a part of those records, and I don't look upon that as anything like miraculous, because it's what I set out to do. And if you understand, you would know that I set out to do this. That's why having it is quite spectacular, most miraculous to me. So what am I doing now? Nowadays, I produce live sports graphs for ESPN. I was college sports down in South Florida. I do direct and produce a team that produces college baseball, football, basketball games, et cetera, in my spare time, which I don't have much of, but I do that. In addition to that, I run my show. You know, I have my Madjef music show, which I'm live streaming tonight. Tommy Barbarella is coming on, and Tommy and I have history because we, you know, ran in Minneapolis a little bit together, and he recorded on some projects that I did for some overseas artists where I had some really big success thanks to some of the work that Tommy did and contributed. And I hope to remind him of those times when we talk tonight. But yeah, that's all I got. Huh?
We're looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a great show. You know, you had some good great guests on the show. You had Karyn White, you had Carrie Lewis as well. You know, and you guys went back some memories of things that happened at FlyteTyme a lot of people didn't know about, which is really, really, really exciting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The show was fantastic, man. The layout, everything is great, man. I mean, all the episodes I've seen, top shelf.
Yeah, you had Gary Hines too from Sons of Blackness.
Sons of Blackness, yeah.
So we've been watching you.
That's my guy. I appreciate that, man. It's a work in progress, and I tell you, a lot goes into it, and I owe it to the people that I'm bringing on the show to go into their history and to go into their pictures and to dig up stuff that reminds them of stuff that they may have forgotten, and just kind of reconnect with them and remind them of the relationship that we had. I haven't seen you in 15 years, but remember when we were doing XYZ? I love to feel that, and that's kind of been trying to bring the show, and it's been really good. I got a lot of excitement coming up. I'm looking forward to it.
Jeff, we're going to be talking to one of your label mates, so to speak, who is a vocalist of Sounds of Blackness. We're not going to say who that is right now, but she sends a special shout out to you.
Yeah.
Right.
She's really excited. And she says she has some things to say about you, Jeff. So we can't wait to hear that.
Listen,
we definitely want the group to stay tuned for that, because she's got some great stories, and
oh my God,
we had a long conversation with her, and Jeff's name came up a few times. So, on behalf of her and on behalf of Wayne and Paul, I definitely want to thank you for coming on and giving us another side of FlyteTyme for all the fans. Definitely appreciate it.
Yes, indeed.
So much, Jeff.
Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Well done, guys. Appreciate it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say thank you for watching the FlyteTyme interviews with our guest, Madjef Taylor. And we're going to drop a little bomb here for everyone. On our next edition of the FlyteTyme interviews will be from the band Mint Condition, Carrie Lewis. That's our next guest. All right. So Carrie has a lot to say.
For
right?
Sure.
So remember to like and subscribe to the dynamic duo #FlyteTyme Innerviews. And this will also be on YouTube's for you to watch. And remember, you can also join the dynamic duo J4 Figo featuring Mr. Fresh on UK246.com every other Saturday, as we bring to you the Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis collection. Until then, next time, we're going to say, we're signing off, and peace.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.